Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about The Nose, written by Nikolai Gogol. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. So, The Nose by Nikolai Gogol. First thing first is if you're gonna read this short story, just try to read this story without touching your nose. It's like it's really hard not to, because this story is really interesting. When you're reading it, and the story is basically about a guy where his nose gets missing, and it's like a fairy tale. I have to say, it is very much like a fairy tale. Because when you're a kid, I don't know if a parent or some type of family member ever, like, I don't know, play with you or take your nose or something. It kind of feels like that. So the horror of having your nose taken away is a very interesting part of the short story. And I mean, we all have noses. I mean, most people, I would imagine, everybody has a nose. And I think you would look quite unpleasant without a nose. It's not really something I think about on a daily basis, but after this story, you kind of want to think about what life would be like without a nose, and this short story kind of helps you understand what that would be like. So basically, and within the short story, the main character, he has his barber. His barber Ivan gives him a shave, and he gets to shave. Or it's a strange story. It's like the story begins with the barber. His wife made some bread, and the barber finds the nose in the bread, and so his wife is like, "Oh, you probably shaved this person's nose while you were giving them a cut." And the barber's like, "Oh, I gotta get rid of the evidence because I don't want to go to jail." So he wraps it in a rag and throws the rag off a bridge with the nose in it. And there's a police officer that sees Ivan do this, and now the police officer's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! What happened here? Why were you throwing that rag off the bridge?" And Ivan was like, "Oh, he tries to, get his way, out of the situation," and he does. And the story goes on with this major, right? This major, who has no nose, all right? And the major is going around without a nose. It's like, what is this? So the major's name is Kovalyov, Major Kovalyov, and he has no nose, and he holds a prominent position, or a position in society in Russia, where he sees a lot of important people. And he needs to have a nose because, you would look quite horrible without a nose when you meet ladies and gentlemen and people of power. You want to look presentable, and not having a nose is not a good thing. So Major Kovalyov, he tries to get his nose back. He goes to the police. Imagine telling the police that you lost your nose and someone stole your nose, or your nose is missing, for them to get you your nose back. It's quite absurd, right? So this short story is a lot about the absurd, because Kovalyov, he goes to the newspaper office. He goes to the newspaper office. He tries to put an ad, and the people there are like, this is crazy, right? He's just crazy because he wants to post about his nose, like, "Hey, if anybody sees my nose or has any information about my nose that can help me get it back, please," like, what kind of advertisement is that in the paper? I mean, it's just ridiculous. People would take it for a joke. So he speaks to the police. He tries to get into the newspaper, and he's like, "Help me find my nose! Help me find my nose!" Now, keep in mind that before his nose went missing, Major Kovalyov, he carried himself with a strict confidence, a self importance, he's a little, I am upper class kind of type of feeling. Now, the nose somehow does come to life, and the nose starts to go around and get into mischief. Well, not anything bad. It's just, well, I don't know, bro. I don't really know how to say this because like I don't. Why? Like the nose is like going to church and attending events, and the nose has a special uniform, which it's pretending to be someone high in power in society in Russia. So Kovalyov, confronts the nose at some point and tells the nose that he needs to get back on his face, and the nose is like, "No, we're not in the same ranking. I'm higher than you, so I deserve the freedom to live and to live my life how I please." And so the nose is like, "Peace," and so I'm like, "What? What is going on here?" So the whole short story is Kovalyov chasing after his nose. The nose doesn't want to reattach itself. He keeps looking for the nose because he can't live without a nose. I mean, having no nose is quite horrible. You probably don't look too good when you don't have a nose on your face. And so he writes to this lady. He contacts several types of people to help him find a nose or find a way to reattach himself with the nose. And so it's just a wild um, it's a wild chase. It's a wild chase. He even writes to this lady to help him get the nose or to question her about the nose, and the lady offers him her daughter. So this is Mrs. Patovich. So these are Russian names. These are kind of tough names. We're gonna call her Mrs. P. So he writes to Mrs. P, and Mrs. P is like, I did not bewitch you. I did not, do any type of spell, or I didn't get involved in any type of way. And she offers her daughter's hand in marriage. And he's like, he's not really that interested. He doesn't want to marry this woman's daughter. And so, yeah, and the story goes on. The story goes on. Um, Eventually, he does get reattached to his nose. The nose comes back to him, and he goes back to resuming to his life, the way it was before. And Yeah, it's like nothing ever happened. I mean, he's more happy. Well, we can't say nothing ever happened because I think he gets more prideful and more self-important. But the nose does get reattached. He doesn't marry Mrs. Patovich, Mrs. P's daughter. He doesn't marry her, even though that the Mrs. Patovich's daughter's hand was offered in marriage. He doesn't marry her, and he just goes back to his life using the same barber. And yeah, in terms of deeper meaning analysis, this is a really absurd work. This is something that never really happens. People losing their noses and their noses coming to life and going around the city doing all types of things. And so it's a very strange work. In terms, when we look at the analysis and deeper meaning, you're asking questions about reality, what matters, what doesn't matter, the pride of this man's importance, his office, because most people, if you lose your nose, you'd be like, I need my nose back, because you need your nose to breathe, and I don't even know how you sleep if you don't have a nose, because most people, you sleep and you breathe through your nose, I would imagine, because I don't think people sleep with their mouths wide open, right? So when you're sleeping, your mouth is usually closed. Again, for most people, I'm assuming that your mouth is closed when you're sleeping, and then you breathe in and out through your nose. Um, so I like for me the whole time I'm like, how do you sleep? Because like, yeah, when you're sleeping, you're getting oxygen through your nose. So there's a lot of questions that this raises. Just practical questions, I guess you can say. Um, so there's a lot to do here about positioning this man's pride, the way he treats other people, and I think maybe we can even say that um, the importance he carries on himself. He treats other people really badly, like Mrs. Patovich, because she wanted her daughter to get married, but you know, he wasn't that interested in her daughter because he's so filled with himself. I don't think he has time to have any interest in a woman, because he's just so enamored with himself and his life and his position and his place in society. Because the way that he tried to convince the nose to get back on his face was that, oh, I'm a high person of value. I should have a nose. That was his reasoning. So it was really interesting to see that. So the character himself, the character himself is somewhat a tough person. You know, he's a tough person because he Kovalyov just he he's really he's really a tough. He's a cold person, a tough person to get to know, a person that has so much pride and so much confidence in himself. I think he's emotionally he's not aware of other people, or he's just worried about himself most of the time. Um, so his positioning, his place in society, just makes him very superficial. Um, but again, this work does say a lot about meaning in life and what's important, what's not important, and just ridiculous. There's a ridiculousness in all the things that people do sometimes. Sometimes, well, just think about it. A man running around a city asking help to find his nose that somehow came to life, and then at the end, um, reattach itself with no explanation. So yeah. Well, that's my summary analysis of this work. Please remember to give a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.